Welcome into K-State Online. I am Mason Voth. That is Drew Galloway, a Tuesday edition of the KSO show. There was going to be one yesterday because we thought, hey, we're getting some news, some portal stuff going on, but the portal news never really slowed down yesterday. And when you thought, hey, going to be able to take a break from this, whatever, just be a normal human, I was in the middle of preparing dinner for my family, and boom, Doug McDaniel in the portal. It's like, okay, I got to, try and take care of this while I'm messing with the enchiladas. And then I'm getting ready for bed, and boom, K-State gets commitment. So a lot to get into with what took place yesterday in the portal for K-State. And overall, I would say probably not great developments on that front. And the vibes, Drew said it before we got going, they were a little different last week when there were some other guys in the mix that we discussed. They're down right now because those guys have gone elsewhere, and it's becoming clearer and clearer that K-State is not going to be able to come away with any of these truly sought-after players in the portal. Yes, Abdi Bashir had some significant offers. There were some good looks there, but again, that those guys are always a risk transferring up from a low major situation that he was in at Monmouth. And now K-State is doing the same type of thing with their latest addition from UNC Wilmington, Kamari McGriff, who we'll get into. But a lot of that headed your way. This could be a long show today because there is a lot to unpack with what's going on. But first, I want to remind everybody about the Aer Lingus College Football Classic coming up in a little over 4 months. You can go to cats2ireland.com right now to get your travel and hospitality packages. That way, you're in a good position to make it over for the game. You get to see K-State and Iowa State in Ireland. And then you can do a lot of other fun things while you're there, exploring everything that Ireland has to offer. And so you don't have to try and figure it out yourself because you're not reliable when it comes to Googling things. Cats2ireland.com, they'll set a bunch of this stuff up for you. Make sure you have a good time with your family or whoever you go and experience it with. Maybe you're the cool person that can pull off traveling solo, and you just go over there and you say, well, eventually I'm going to meet like thousands of Cats fans, so I'll just go by myself and I'll have a good time while doing it. So go to cats2ireland.com to get ready for that experience today. Drew, what is the Ireland fun fact of the day?
I have a wild fun fact today because I sound kind of gross right now. Like I'm self-aware to know that my allergies have been just really through the roof the last few days. Hay fever is a very common allergen in Ireland. But then if you're like me and my wife actually has food allergies, it says that Ireland is a very good place for people to go with food allergies because they are required by law to have like all of the allergens listed in every single food menu.
No. Okay. Interesting. I think that's something that places should do more of is that just you can put it in tiny words, but anytime you're out eating somewhere, they should list everything that is in the item. That way,
Yeah.
you're just like, obviously you understand the main stuff, but it's like, I want to know everything that's in this, either because I'm going to go, oh, what is this? I like this. Or because I go, I don't know, maybe I'll steer clear of that. I think you'd have a lot less poor decisions made when people decide their food items if you put everything that's in there in it.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's just a lot safer because they're the 14 main allergies. You never know how severe some can be, so
Well,
having them all listed is good.
and on that front, I sometimes I need people to maybe make me more aware of that. One time in college, a bunch of my roommates and I were like, okay, we're gonna go out to Texas Roadhouse tonight, and we asked our other roommate to if he wanted to go with us, him and his girlfriend, who later became his wife. And he's like, yeah, she can't eat there. And we're like, oh, why not? What doesn't she like about Texas Roadhouse? And he was like, well, she's got a really bad peanut allergy. And, peanuts all over that place, at least pre-COVID. So we could not take, it was either go to Texas Roadhouse and maybe kill his wife or let her live. And so we just left them at home. And but that was, I was like, oh yeah, people do have that's something you don't think of. Like some of these places, he's like, yeah, Texas Roadhouse, 5 Guys, not a chance for her.
It also says like to be aware of cross contamination because that's what gets like
Yeah.
my wife and I in trouble more often than not. So it says to always call and like make sure, but they'll have everything listed for you.
You know, this has nothing to do with sports, and we'll get to it in a second, but have you ever, like, when you go somewhere, I think of it most of the time at, like, sandwich places. I don't know how many people, if anybody, has allergies to, like, lettuce or, like, tomatoes or stuff like that, but you see these people, like, building sandwiches and, like, they're just ingredients flinging all over the place into the other ingredients. They're not really paying attention to keep them separate. It's like you'll get a rogue olive sometimes. Like, what is this disgusting thing of blackness? Uh, and I wonder, like, uh, do they not have to be more careful about that? Or has anybody been like, yeah, I've got a tomato allergy and there was a piece of tomato in this thing and I'm cooked now because of you? Like, what? I just, that's the thing that's always come to my head is like, why are people not more careful about that? But I think, I don't know many people with vegetable allergies. So
No,
that may be a blind spot for me, but I have not encountered that.
could be a blind spot for me as well. Never heard of anybody with a vegetable allergy.
Okay. Yeah. Well, something to keep in mind, sandwich workers. I do. My wife does not, some of these places you can do like a drive through or a pickup. My wife always makes me go in so I can observe them making it so they don't act. Her big thing is she doesn't like condiments of any kind. So she wants to make sure that, like, they better not use the same knife that has like mayo and mustard on it. So I have to actually go in and like supervise the sandwich making process. You want to talk about supervising, Drew? Somebody might need to be appointed to supervise what K-State basketball is doing right now because they lost another staff member yesterday, Franklin Muskelly, who had been their director of analytics and video. He is taking an assistant coach job at UL Monroe that was announced yesterday. And so they've got, another open spot on the staff. And then in addition to that, we got a flurry of guys that entered the transfer portal yesterday for K-State. It's only been 24 hours ago, but I can't remember which one was first. I think it was Ugo. But Ugonna Onyenso is one of those that entered the transfer portal, played 1 year at K-State after 2 seasons at Kentucky. And his production in terms of what K-State thought they were getting got worse when he came from Kentucky to K-State. He played less minutes per game at K-State. He had his block numbers drop at K-State, and now he's back in the portal with 1 year of eligibility to play. And the thing with Onyenso that is probably most notable here is that he was one of the NIL overpayments that K-State made last year, and that's what makes the Ugonna Onyenso experience so bad and unforgivable, is that you wasted serious resources on a player that was not anywhere close to good or really serviceable for you. If K-State was a better team last year, Ugonna Onyenso is not playing even 11 minutes a game because very rarely did it feel like he was on the floor giving you anything good.
Yeah, in a vacuum again, Ugonna Onyenso leaving doesn't really bother me or impact me at all. Like I was one of the people on the camp that, because there was a point where it kind of seemed like he might come back, but then he ends up entering the portal anyway. I was one of the ones that was like, no, like nothing that we saw really last year from Ugonna Onyenso would make me intrigued to have that come back for a second season. I know that he probably would have taken an IL pay cut, maybe even a reduced role from what he had, but there just was not anything there that would really make me super excited. So for him to leave, I think is probably a net positive. And again, anybody in the front court, there's going to be a lot of minutes that K-State can distribute, especially at the 5 spot, because there are 0 players on the roster that can play the 5.
Yeah, they're hurting right now for that because one guy who played in a handful of games last year, but they still, I think, thought they were going to get a red shirt for him. Another 1 year player that came in and now he's out, and just waste of time, waste of resources. Baye Fall is also leaving K-State. He only played 25 minutes in total last year. You had a good season when the only things that I can put down there for your stats are how many games you played in, how many minutes, and that you're tall. Because that's about the only thing that Baye Fall has going for him. He's somehow was a McDonald's All-American, and I think Arkansas and K-State have now both found out why was he that? Because couldn't even get on the floor for him. So he's got 2 years left. It's this, I mean, you barely knew Baye Fall because he hardly played at K-State, and another recruiting failure for K-State basketball.
Yeah, this one, again, in a vacuum, doesn't really bother you a whole lot. What is interesting to me is, like, we knew when Baye Fall was added. The K-State coaches knew when Baye Fall was added. He was probably going to need to redshirt to find a year to, like, develop and get something going development-wise with him. So then to redshirt and then transfer, it kind of feels like K-State wasted their time, because the only time that they would see, like, the profits of, like, what they did for Baye Fall now would be at a different school. So it makes you, again, this is why redshirting in basketball, I think, is just kind of a waste of time now.
Yeah.
But you redshirted a guy, and now, well, you essentially redshirted him. Eligibility is all kinds of made up. Eddie Lampkin apparently is in the portal, and he's played 5 seasons of college basketball.
I mean, there's
Like,
guys left and right that are in the portal that their last schools are like, these guys have eligibility left.
Yeah, and we'll even get into it because K-State's edition last night has played 4 seasons of college basketball already. So you kind of get into it as, like, okay, like, he probably has 3 years left if you're looking at Baye Fall. But K-State gets nothing for that redshirt season that Baye Fall had. So is it really worth it to take a guy and redshirt him? He plays in 4 games. I genuinely could not tell you a single thing that Baye Fall did on the court in the 4 games that he'd played. But what you're going to see is that wherever he goes next, if he plays, like, they will get the benefits of K-State redshirting him.
Well, yeah, we'll see if that's a benefit or a detriment to
I
whoever
would-
gets him.
I'll say that it will probably be a benefit. I would imagine after 2 seasons at high major schools where he could barely get on the floor, that he goes down a level, or
Yeah,
maybe
he could probably go tear it up at, like, Sam Houston or something.
Yeah, like, he feels like a guy that transfers to not even, like, the mid-major level, but the low major level.
Yeah.
By the way, he's also about to be 22 years old as a junior. So,
well, we also know that age doesn't matter anymore in college athletics. You can be pretty old and play it. Then the third domino to fall yesterday in the transfer portal, Doug McDaniel is out of town. After his 3rd season of college basketball, he will look for his 3rd different team. Average double-figure scoring last year, almost 5 assists. There were flashes of what you wanted Doug McDaniel to be, and that's what was being sold on him coming back, is that, hey, it feels like maybe he's turned a little bit of a corner. He can come back and be your lead guard. And this is where, I said a while back, if Doug McDaniel stays, then it's because he's here, he's bought in. Like, that's what you're selling yourself on. But if he leaves, he is doing you a favor, because it means that he was none of those things, and he would have just been a headache and a pain in the butt next season as well. And here he is transferring out. But what it does is, this was the only piece remaining for K-State that you could sell on being helpful to your cause next year in a serious way. This was the only legitimate guy on your roster that was going to play 30 minutes a game next season that you were bringing back. And, you would, and you see the 3-point number there, under 26%. You would have thought that would improve somewhat, and just, it would have been a better year for Doug McDaniel. But K-State does not keep him. I'm not going to fault the coaching staff on this one for not trying to retain him. If you want to fault them for anything, it's probably bringing Doug McDaniel in to begin with, because we know how many headaches there were with him last year, and this saga was just never going to end. Andy Staples wrote a thing about the Nico Iamaleava situation today, and he was talking about how Tennessee should not have been surprised that the guy whose high school recruitment boiled down to who paid me the most money got to a stage during his college career that was, you got to pay me a lot of money. And like that's the type of thing here. Doug McDaniel having all these things happen should not come as a surprise now. So he leaves K-State. If there was any type of roster building that was going on that looked positive, then this is not a big deal. You say good riddance. We don't need you anymore. We're better off. But this team and staff kind of needed Doug McDaniel to stick around because there is no positive movement right now. And as we've talked about, like you can find good players from lower levels, but the fact that they're whiffing on any of these guys that are transferring out from maybe more sought after spots, and now your two pickups are coming from the CAA and probably going to have to play bigger roles than what they should have to play for a Big 12 team. It's alarming.
Yeah, the confusing part to me is, again, Doug transfers, that's fine. He was just okay last year. You could talk yourself pretty easily though into, okay, he's going to be the first time that Jerome Tang has brought his lead guard back. Like, what does that look like? Well, now he's gone and he's going to have 4 point guards in 4 years. So you lose that. You lose everything that you talked about during the latter half of the season when it was pretty obvious that K-State was going to make the NCAA tournament, or they had to go on that insane 6-game stretch where it looked like they could maybe scratch and claw their way. All Jerome Tang talked about was roster continuity and bringing everybody back that can come back, and like having like the Houston model. And the first part that kind of kills that for me is this wasn't the team to bring a lot of guys back. Like,
yeah, this team was a terrible team, and you're like, we got to bring guys back.
So first, the timing there just wasn't exactly jiving correctly. Like, if you wanted a year to bring a lot of guys back, you probably should have done it after year 2, when you could have brought Arthur Kalume and Cam Carter back and then brought in like a lead guard. So that was already off. And then now we're on April 15th, and the two guys that I think that everybody probably wanted to have back, one probably for sure in Brendan Hausen. The other one, again, you're just kind of talking yourself into, okay, what can he do in year 2? Because we saw Doug McDaniel grow a lot last year off the court. So you're hoping that he could be even better off the court and have no distractions, be all about basketball, really buy in. And now he's gone. And you spent the last half of the season talking about roster continuity and kind of doing what Houston's been doing. Well, now you have almost all of your production has gone from last year. The guys that have played major minutes or minutes period that are back are CJ Jones, Moby Ike Garuka, and David Castillo. Like, those are not guys that are going to right now help K-State win a basketball game. So you lose out on a lot of that. And then for me, the other killer in all of this is if you're going to lose Doug McDaniel or even Brendan Hausen to a certain extent, you would have wanted them to be like one of the first people out the door. Because now the portal is about to close. You can get commits at any time, but there's a lot more options to choose from.
Yeah.
If Doug McDaniel and Brendan Hausen are one of your first people out the door. Now, if you look at the On3 industry transfer rankings, I believe 21 of the top 25 have already committed to a school. And now you're just hoping that somebody else enters the portal and then you can land them. Now, because your options are so narrow now, and you have to hit a grand slam on, you have 6 open roster spots. K-State's sitting at 9 total. We think that they probably won't carry more than 13. So you really have 4 roster spots open. We know about the 2 European guys. Like, say that they're in. That means that K-State really only wants to carry 2 more guys. Like, you have to hit a grand slam twice for K-State to even really have what would be a respectable, like, reasonable roster. because you're bringing guys back that haven't played much. You have 2 freshmen coming in that aren't expected to really play much, or shouldn't play much for a pretty decent team.
Yeah.
You're still not sure if Tyreek Smith will be able to come back. Like we think so, but nobody really knows. Max Jones is another guy that like we don't know if he's back or not. We're supposed to know in the next couple weeks if he's able to come back. But then you go back and expand even further out, and you can pull the roster back up here. If Tyreek Smith and Max Jones both come back, and you got both European guys, K-State's at 12 roster spots, which means that they would, again, because all we keep hearing from Gene Taylor and Jerome Tang is that they only want to have 13 guys. That would mean that they'd only have 1 guy that they could bring in. They have 0 5s and 0 point guards. Is that good?
It's not great. And in addition to that, Max Jones is a fine player. If you put Max Jones on that list, and again, he's not there because it seems doubtful that the D2 guys end up getting their waivers now. Tyreek Smith is there because I think he might have somewhat of a case, and it seems like, I don't know, because this whole thing's weird. Anyways, we'll see. But like Max Jones, if he came back, he would be the second best player on that team right there. And we just got done talking last year that we didn't think that if Max came back, like you'd be better if he was not in the starting lineup again. Like you want him to be a 6th man. You want him to try and be the best 6th man in the Big 12. And like that would be a role that he could serve. If you're able to get him back, and at this point, K-State should probably be crossing their fingers hoping they get him back, because I don't know that they're going to find a better player than him right now with the situation that you just laid out. And in addition to that, like the thing that concerns me is that, if you pencil in the 2 Europeans that we talked about last week, the 2 Germans, Matthew Grujic and Elias Rapieg, we talked about those guys as in like you think they'll be good and there's a lot to like there, but you just don't know how it'll translate immediately. Grujic is the one that profiles more as being maybe an immediate impact type of guy, like on a big scale. Rapier, just because of the position and the situation, you would think, okay, he probably gives you good minutes next year, but like those guys now would have to come in and be studs for you. And there's no saying that they wouldn't be, but it's not totally likely. So that's the other thing that brings us in. Like you hit on kind of the roster construction of all of this. Some of these players that they have brought in are not bad players. And like Abdi Bashir and Kamari McGriff, who, we'll talk about here in just a little bit, like fine players depending on your situation. K-State's situation right now, they need something better than Kamari McGriff in the portal. And it doesn't really make a ton of sense because, when they first got him last night, I thought, okay, he's got to be like a better version of Tyreek Smith. Well, you dive into it. Tyreek Smith is more of a gritty, like you get more on the defensive end. He'll grab some more rebounds. The offensive end maybe lacking a little bit. And McGriff is pretty much a non-factor on defense. His offense took a significant jump this year, playing primarily off the bench for UNC Wilmington, who made the NCAA tournament. But when, DY texted us probably 30, 40 minutes before the McGriff thing happened, I said, I watched all 40 minutes of UNC Wilmington and Texas Tech in Wichita this year. I don't remember this guy at all. And I went and looked. He was 8 points, 4 of 10 in the game against Texas Tech. And this to me, like, not the same thing because these guys had some size, but if McGriff and Smith are dudes that are playing actual minutes for you next year, it feels like you're back into a Will McNair, Jarrell Colbert situation where it's like only one of these guys can play defense and the other one gives us something on offense. And you're just going to have to pick your poison depending on the game and situation on which one's playing. And that's not a great spot to really be in. Like, if this was a more complete roster right now and we felt better about some other areas, Kamari McGriff's actually like a fine pickup, I think, because he's going to score at the rim and he's going to give you a little bit of an offensive burst there, and you can survive elsewhere. But you don't have somebody that can play the 5 for you right now. So you don't have a rim protector or anybody that can kind of save the bacon of a guy like McGriff defensively. And he can only score around the basket. So, like, what's he going to provide to your offense right now? Because you don't have somebody that can get the ball to him. Because, like, now it's making more sense why Abdi Bashir is on this team, because he might get to do what he did at Monmouth last year, except at K-State in the Big 12. And it didn't go well for Monmouth last year, and it's certainly not shaping up to go well for K-State right now.
Yeah, the thing for me, I guess we can dive in a little bit more with Kamari McGriff, is I don't understand it from a roster standpoint.
Yeah.
Like we laid out the roster right now. K-State has 0 5s and 0 point guards. What do they have? A lot of power forwards
That can't shoot.
that can't shoot unless they're around the basket.
Let's be honest. They have a lot of guys on this team that can't shoot right now.
Yeah.
McGriff can't shoot. Smith can't shoot. CJ Jones, not really. Taj Manning, no. Moby, no. David Castillo, you'd like to think that he could, but he didn't do it last year. And then 2 freshmen, and we're not even going to talk about them right now because, freshmen in this whole equation, these are not 2 freshmen that pencil in as being guys that play legitimate minutes next season.
No, but you look at that. They have a lot of power forwards that can't shoot, no centers. And what makes it, again, just confusing standpoint for me from the roster standpoint is that Elias Rapiak kind of profiles to be that like 3 or 4. So again, you just would be adding another one. At least Rapiak can shoot it a little bit.
Yeah, and I think his shooting actually could take a step forward when he gets to this level and the opportunities. But yeah.
But you're just adding another guy at a position that you were okay with. Like, that's where I just am kind of confused by this ad. Like, I think that McGriff is a fine player, and I would go back and forth on taking him or Tyreek Smith on the roster if you were just getting one. But having both, adding Rapiak potentially, like, I don't know how they all fit together. And we talked last week when Elijah Saunders was a possibility before he committed to Maryland after he visited there. That was a guy that made sense from a roster standpoint because he was a 4 that could shoot, had experience at 2 schools, and would come in and probably play the 4 for K-State and play pretty well. And you could have Rapiak like be his backup and then maybe play a little bit on the wing too. Now you look at the roster standpoint again, and you could make an argument that K-State also doesn't really have a 3. Like the roster doesn't make a whole lot of sense right now because it is so power forward and 2 guard heavy that it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Because, like, in an ideal world, if you're just basing off of like size, Taj Manning and Moby Ike Garuka would be wings because they aren't like super tall, but they're really long.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is that neither one of them can shoot. So because of that, they probably have to play the 4. And then you already had Tyreek Smith, who can maybe be like a small ball 5 in a certain lineup, but it's probably primarily going to be a power forward. And then you have Kamari McGriff, who is probably like a slightly worse version than Tyreek Smith. So it doesn't make a lot of sense from a roster standpoint. Like, I think that's what I'm trying to hammer home here, is because I think that in a vacuum on a good team, Kamari McGriff would make sense.
Yeah.
Because he's a guy that could probably come in and play like 10 to 15 minutes at the backup 4 and is good around the basket, has good touch, has good post moves. But on a team that needs guys that can come in and play a lot of minutes, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And just, I don't really understand it.
Well, and the other thing to get into here, McGriff listed at 6'9", 210. Tyreek Smith is 6'6", 223. So like that gives you an idea of where they are size-wise and how they might profile the play. Some of the other numbers to compare, Tyreek Smith's last season he was over 8 points a game at SMU, played about 19 minutes in the American, which, believe it or not, Drew, I will say a nice thing about the American, better than the CAA, where this year Kamari McGriff played 19 minutes a game, averaged 11.5 points, 4 rebounds, about 1 block. Smith was over 1.5 blocks per game at SMU, and his rebounds was about 5.4 per contest. So when you look at it, and based on what they'll give you, like Smith, and he was a 58% shooter, so the field goal percentage was a little bit lower with him. I think Smith is the better option there. And, I said last night, like on the boards, when they first got Smith, I didn't really like that addition for a number of reasons. I was like, I don't really know what this type of player gives you. And I don't really like K-State going out and getting a guy after they've had all these problems with dudes. And we just saw it manifest again because Doug McDaniel has left. Ugonna Onyenso is looking for another team. Achor quit, 7 games in the year or whatever it was. Tyreek Smith has played at Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, SMU. Then he went to Memphis, and then he quit there before the season even started. And then he ended up at K-State. So this is his 5th program that he's trying to play at in 6 years or whatever it ends up being. And so I have questions about that. You need a waiver to even make him eligible. So like I didn't like some of the stuff with Tyreek Smith, but you already had Tyreek Smith. You have a roster of a lot of guys that I just don't know that they can do anything. And then you add McGriff on top of that. And that's why the McGriff thing becomes so much more like less palatable to take. If this was a closer to completion roster, I think McGriff is a fine addition. Like that gives you somebody that can maybe score inside when somebody else is having a tough night, or you don't have to lean so heavily on somebody else. That's not the case here. The other element of this that comes across as maybe lessons not being learned is that I am going to imagine that K-State had to probably go a little above and beyond what a player of Kamari McGriff's standing would need in the NIL space in this recruitment, because who broke the news of the Kamari McGriff commitment, Drew?
Pete Thamel.
Pete Thamel, ESPN's college football. I try to act like a college basketball guy sometimes, insider. Who told Pete Thamel about this? Was it Kamari McGriff?
No.
It was his agents. And when the 6th man that played less than 20 minutes a game at UNC Wilmington has his agents breaking the news to Pete Thamel for college basketball, sends off some alarm bells in my head that, oh, hey, there might be some financial incentive involved here that pushed this thing overboard. To make that even worse is that the visits that were known for Kamari McGriff was Pitt and OU. Was he supposed to be to Oklahoma today?
He was supposed to be at OU today, according to John Rothstein, on April 9th.
So a guy commits before even going on a visit to OU that he was supposed to take. And that again, to cancel these visits, it probably takes some financial guarantees. We don't know that he even visited K-State at any point yet. And that's just another element in all of this that is a little disappointing and concerning about the direction of K-State basketball right now, is that they wanted roster retention. Well, they're failing on that front. Okay. What else can we get better about? Like, let's get program guys in here. Well, I don't know. You just got a guy that looked like he was going for his cash grab and all this other stuff. And look, Kamari McGriff, I know he won some leadership award in the CAA, and he spent 4 years at UNCW. Like, if you've got the ability to move up, it's totally within his right to go get it done. That doesn't mean that K-State needed to be the ones that did it, because they've got much bigger problems than needing to land a guy like Kamari McGriff. And that leads me to my final thing here that's alarming about this edition, is that it almost makes me think that there's some panic going on with the K-State coaching staff, looking around and saying, who's going to score for us? And so you had to go out and get a guy that essentially all he does is score when he plays. And that's the concerning thing to cap this off, is that I don't think Kamari McGriff's coming here to play 10 to 15 minutes a game. I think that they're in a position where he's probably going to have to play more minutes a game here than he did at UNCW. And it's because they got nobody else outside of Abdi Bashir that can score the basketball on the team right now.
The thing for me that, again, just doesn't make a whole lot of sense is I think that this pickup would, I don't even want to say be more celebrated, but it would make more sense. Like if Tyreek Smith was not on the roster. And like
before I even could dig into it last night, I just immediately assumed, okay, this has to be somebody that's better than Tyreek Smith. Like, it has to be substantial. They think, okay, Smith's not going to get the waiver, or they don't really want him to stick around. They want to upgrade there. But as it becomes clearer to me, I don't think that he is better than Tyreek Smith.
So that's probably, again, just goes back to the roster right now just doesn't make a lot of sense looking at it in a vacuum, because of the 9 players, you could probably profile 4 are power forwards, and then 3 are combo guards, and then 1 is a wing, and then like it just doesn't make a lot of sense from that standpoint. Then you also just look, and I know that K-State has been like attached to transfers that like they're on their hearing from lists, but it seems like K-State has really gone away from the portal this cycle. Like, we don't know, and it doesn't seem like, because Abdi Bashir used a graphic that was him photoshopped in a jersey. So we don't think that he has visited yet. We don't think that Kamari McGriff has visited yet. It kind of seems like they're avoiding the portal a little bit, and I'm just kind of confused by that logic. But like right now, it's looking really rough. You look at, because that's the other thing in this is like, I don't like comparing rosters on April 15th, but when you're looking at the Big 12, K-State might have the worst roster in the Big 12.
It's certainly feeling that way right now. And the other thing that I would add, and I
like
is
Oklahoma State is even upgrading their roster.
Oh yeah, well Steve Lutz, they're going nuts for Lutz down there, and he's trying to make things actually happen. The thing is, you compare this portal cycle to last year. Last year was a bad team for K-State, but they did enough in the portal where they made moves that, yes, idiots like me, but also national idiots that are, well known in college basketball circles, thought K-State was going to be a top 25 team, thought K-State was going to be in the NCAA tournament last season. And yeah, it didn't work out. Like, you got some bad personalities together and you didn't have kind of a guy that could rally them all, whatever. Okay, that happens. And it was bad, and the staff could not afford to have that happen and have some of the same things come up again and back-to-back bad years. What's going on right now is infinitely worse than last year, because they've not landed anybody yet that I go, oh wow, I think this could do something for them. And again, I told people, you got to be cautious with this now. Like, that game should not really be played for this staff until they prove it again. So, if they came out and they got this year's version of Doug McDaniel and Coleman Hawkins and, Achor, Brendan Hausen, all these guys, you probably shouldn't go, oh yeah, we're cooking now, this team's going to be good. But you could at least be saying in the back of your head, like, I'm ready to get hurt again. I'm ready to be that idiot that thinks, oh, this team, they might have something here. You can't even do that with this team this year because they're not getting significant players out of the portal right now. And that's just another one of those concerning things to me, is that the game is being played at a much lower level this season in the portal for K-State. And these aren't even guys that are profiling as, oh, we're finding some diamonds in the rough. We're, getting some guys that they're better culture fit than anything else. That doesn't really matter at this point. You can have all the right culture fits in the world, but if they can't win a basketball game, then I don't care if you're all holding hands and hugging after the game ends. I'd rather you be knocking the crap out of each other and be winning on the scoreboard after every game. It's just not great right now for what's going on with K-State basketball. And it's disappointing because as it stands here on April 15th, this team is set up in a situation to miss the NCAA tournament for a third straight year. And that'd be the 6th missed tournament in 7 seasons for K-State basketball, the last 3 of Weber, and then the previous 3 of Tang with his one Elite 8 run tossed in the middle there, which as we get further and further away from it, just people more credit should be heaped onto Marquise Noel, Keontae Johnson, and Desi Sills for what took place with that team.
Yeah, the other part that is just hard. Yeah, this is the 4th total reset that K-State has really had on their roster, at least replacing major contributors. And we talked last offseason, like one of the things that made us excited was like Doug McDaniel had another year, Ugonna Onyenso had another year, Brennan Hausen had another year. We didn't know what Baye Fall was, but like the intriguing thing was that he had 3 years left.
Mm-hmm.
So you brought in a lot of these multi-year
and a red shirt.
Yeah, and a red shirt. So you brought in all these multi-year guys, and everybody essentially that you could bring in that had an extra year has left. So you aren't really building anything substantial, and that is like the killer of all this for me. Is basketball season, as we know, is very long. And it feels like this is going to be a really long winter because I, as it stands right now, I'm not sure if K-State finishes above 15th in the Big 12.
Yeah. Well, and keep in mind, the transfer portal is supposed to be fun for everybody in college basketball. Like that's supposed to be your version of spring training in baseball where you start to get, hey, this comes together. Like the transfer portal has not been fun for K-State this year, and it doesn't look like that's going to change anytime soon. You mentioned Brendan Hausen. Do want to mention here, he did end up at Iowa. He committed there yesterday. I look at what Ben McCollum's doing, and I go, that'd be fun to be a fan of Iowa next season. You got Bennett Sturts, you got Brendan Hausen, 2 guys that I would have loved to have seen in purple next season, and a guy that obviously knows how to coach. That's a fitting landing spot for Brendan Hausen, and probably won't be very fun for K-State fans to see that he ended up there. But
and what also I think sucks more about that is I would be willing to say that he probably plays less at Iowa than he did at K-State this year.
Well, if he had stayed at K-State, they would have ran him into the ground next year because they would have had to have next year because nobody else can real. It would have been him and Bashir, and they probably would have been fighting over who got to do what, shooting the ball. But you need offensive options, and K-State just doesn't really have them right now. And that's why the McGriff thing scares me so much, is that it feels like that was a move that was made to have an offensive option. It's just like the guy that played 19 minutes a game in the CAA, I don't know how that's going to translate to the Big 12 this coming year. But
yeah, I don't know where it goes from here because K-State can hit grand slams with what we think are going to be the last 2 transfer options because we anticipate them getting both European players. They could hit 2 grand slams and still not even finish top half of the Big 12. Yeah. and that's just a sad reality right now because you're looking, and I would be willing to bet that in the preseason AP top 25 that the Big 12 probably has 3, maybe 4 top 10 teams.
Yeah.
So, and that's also like what I want to get into. I've seen people, the discourse always comes when something just that sucks happens to K-State, where people always say, oh, college sports now are kind of ruined. I don't think that Texas Tech right now would say that college sports are ruined.
Yeah.
Texas Tech is throwing money around like it's nothing. And they are doing something really well on the basketball front. We'll see how it translates to football. But I guarantee you that no Texas Tech fan is saying that college sports are ruined. That if you have a coach that can coach and has a plan and that all comes together, there are plenty of teams that before NIL and the transfer portal weren't thriving that are right now. Like BYU is another example in the Big 12 of a team that was not doing well until the NIL and transfer portal really started in basketball. And we'll see what that translates and like what that looks like football wise for BYU. But BYU has a hell of a coach. They have unlimited money. They took Rob Wright from Baylor. So they got something going for them. So like college sports are kind of a mess right now, but you can't say that only when something bad happens. Like, because there's plenty of good that's happening right now. Like K-State holding on to Avery Johnson and just getting Avery Johnson in general probably doesn't happen without NIL support and NIL backing. So college sports, weird, but there's a balance. They're not broken. I also wanted to give a shout out to Serena Sundell for getting drafted last night by the Seattle Storm. Fun that she gets to play in the same city as her brother. Like, I would love to know what are the odds of that happening for two siblings to get drafted in the same city in their professional sport.
That is an oddity there to get that to happen. It probably doesn't happen very often, unless it's like same sport, same team type of deal where I think you'll get that sometimes. But for it to be two totally different sports and organizations, that's
and like two totally different drafts because the WNBA draft only 3 rounds, NBA draft or the NFL draft 7 rounds. So like two totally different draft processes and everything. I also think that she's going to make a lot of the other teams pay for her sliding in the draft because as somebody that was watching for somebody that was heavily watching last night from like pick 10 on, I was like, no, she's better than this person, this person, this person. So hopefully she proves them all wrong.
Yeah. One other thing that I would like to throw out here is insanity that Colorado has announced they're retiring the number 2 for Shedeur Sanders. You know what? I'm not gonna like the Travis Hunter thing. I won't fault him for it. The dude won a Heisman there. But this is just a total like selling your soul to Deion Sanders. And when this thing fails or when Deion leaves, Colorado athletics is going to be in a pile of crap that they're not going to be able to get out of for a long time. And that's probably why Tad Boyle can just sit around there for however long he wants, because they're not going to pay him to leave, and they're probably not looking to get into the game of paying a coach any more than what Tad Boyle's already making, because they have sold out totally to Deion Sanders.
I wonder if Tad Boyle gets the Bobby Hurley treatment where they just don't extend him and don't fire him and his contract just expires.
Yeah, I think that's probably likely.
I'm pretty confident that that's going to be what happens to Bobby Hurley this season, unless somehow they miraculously make another tournament.
Yeah, which
hey, he does love going to Dayton.
Yeah, he is a big Dayton guy. So we'll see how that goes for them. And we may be a year removed from having conversations much more serious about that here, because things do not look great right now for K-State. Still, there is time. Like, K-State has made numerous portal ads well after the window has closed for guys to enter. That window ends a week from today on the 22nd. So that's when the guys that are in, they are the ones that are there, and we'll see what K-State can do from that point moving forward. But as you noted a couple times throughout, while they have 6 open roster spots, K-State has said in different moments that they're really penciling in for only about 13 of the 15 spots to be used scholarship-wise. So you're looking at really only 4 more to work with filling out this team. In terms of, players that could actually play for you next year. And right now, this is not a roster that this is a team that would finish in last place in the Big 12. They have to get better in a hurry. And that also means, like you've talked about, yes, the 2 Europeans that it seems like K-State might be the front runner for and hot on the trails of, they got to get stuff figured out there. Like, you have to make sure those come to completion, where those guys don't decide to do something else, whether it's the college route or stay, professional over there. And because they're with, you know, that these organizations work differently over, like, there's probably a buyout that K-State's going to have to put into place to get these guys to be able to abandon their European contracts to come play college basketball. There's a lot in this thing that they're still going to have to figure out. So we'll see how this plays for K-State, and if there's anything else that happens on the transfer portal front, we'll have you covered right here on the KSO show. And because, you know, we can't always be here the second something happens, we can be at KStateOnline.com constantly. This is the perfect time of year. If you are somebody that you've watched all the videos and you're curious, you want to be in on it, you want to know what's being said on the message boards, you want the inside recruiting info from Drew and Derek Young, sign up for KSO today. Go to On3, choose K-State as your team. You get access to not just the inside info from KSO, but also Joe Tipton, our college basketball insider at On3, and then a litany of guys on the football front for On3 that can keep you covered there. Why is this the right time? Well, transfer portal, like we're talking about. We think there may be one other transfer in the hopper for K-State right now. Just a little, you know, it doesn't seem like that would make a ton of sense either. And then also spring football in full swing at this point in time, which also means Drew's on top of it with guys in the 2026, 2027 classes taking unofficial visits. They're starting to line up official visits that will take place in June. So a lot going on this time of year. It's the perfect time to be a KSO member. I would argue, you know, some people think off-season football, basketball not playing. No, this is the time you want to be a KSO member, because this is about the only way you're going to get your K-State fix this time of year. So go to KStateOnline.com, get signed up today, and follow along, not just with us right here, but also at KSO. So that will do it for us today. For Drew Galloway, I'm Mason Voth. We're out of here. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Let's talk some football tomorrow, Drew. That sound like more fun?
Yeah, that works for me.
All right, football tomorrow, unless something crazy with basketball happens, which portal season, it always could. But that's our promise. We'll get some football in there somehow tomorrow and be back with another KSO show for everybody.